Welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Matt Delvecchio, specializing in life transitions, the senior living industry, and elder care planning. Did you know speech and hearing awareness is observed in May every year? And also, did you know that more than 90% of children with hearing loss are born to hearing parents? Well, we have France Tassé, the director of, we're going to go with pedagogy, France, okay? With pedagogy, we're going to say pedagogy. And she is the director of pedagogy at the Montreal Oral School for the Deaf. France, welcome to Life Unrehearsed.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for joining us right here in studio. Such an important topic. Glad to have you here. So let's start it off. What would some of the most common forms of hearing loss be?
Okay, so some of the common types of hearing loss that maybe the general population might have come across, and before we get that, you need to think a little bit about how the ear is sort of structured. So we have the outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. And so people might have heard about a conductive hearing loss, and when that's the case, the issue is usually in the middle ear. And if, you've heard of a sensory neural hearing loss, then it means that the issue is in the inner ear and most of the time in the cochlea. And that's usually a permanent hearing loss. Some people might have heard of a mixed loss, which means that you do have a sensory neural hearing loss, and there's also a conductive component to it. So those are sort of in the ballpark, the types of hearing loss that we hear about. There are other ones that we hear less, such as auditory neuropathy. But, sensory neural conductive hearing losses is usually what the general population hears about.
It's quite amazing how you're explaining that, as we just think of it as our ear, but the way you break it down, outer, middle, inner ear, you could see how there could be a range of challenges. And I know a big part of hearing loss and improvement on hearing is early intervention. So can you explain the importance of early intervention with hearing loss?
Early intervention is so important and crucial. But before we head into that, there's $1 million question, Matt, that I would like to ask you, and it would be, what do we hear with?
All right. I owe someone $1 million. I don't have the answer to that.
Oh, I like that answer. Actually, it is the brain. And so Dr. Carol Flexer, who's a well-known audiologist in the U.S., says it really nicely when she says ears are the doorway to the brain. And so basically the ears, information comes in, auditory information goes through the ears does what it has to do, and then it sends that information to the brain. And so research shows that brain plasticity is at its maximum between the ages of 0 and 3. So the sooner we provide auditory input to the brain, the more we stimulate it, the better the outcome for listening, speech, and language development. But we have to remember that hearing technology is not like glasses. When you get glasses, you put them on, it corrects your vision. When we have a hearing loss, hearing technology does not do that. So you'll have hearing aids that amplify sounds. You'll have a cochlear implant that gives more of an electrical impulse. And you have to work at it. You have to work on those listening skills. So I'm going to parallel a little bit to, and I think maybe people will understand when older people or young adults get hearing aids for the first time, they all say, oh my gosh, that's so loud. I don't like my hearing aids. I don't like to wear it. Well, it's not the hearing aid that's loud. It's not your ears that's not doing it. It's your brain that's talking to you. When you have a hearing loss, you hear things muffled, at distance, softer. It's not clear. Sometimes you don't hear at all. And all of a sudden you put hearing technology on and the brain says, wow, what is all this information? It's a bombardment. And so you have to give your brain the time to listen, to transition, to understand. And so, it's been beautiful outside. I stepped out today and the birds were chirping. Well, if I had, I'm a new hearing aid user and I step outside and I listen to this, it's all noise. You're saying, oh, it's so loud. You have to give your brain the time to listen and to identify all that. So if we go back to, little children, parents are the primary caregiver for children with hearing loss. And so our job is to coach them to seize every opportunity in their daily routines for developing listening and spoken language. And again, if we step outside and we hear a little dog, we'll say, listen, it's a dog. It's barking. It goes woof, woof. Ooh, that's loud. Every opportunity is an important moment during a daily routine day.
Listening to Life Unrehearsed, Matt Delvecchio here, and I'm talking with France Tassé, Director of Pedagogy at the Montreal Oral School for the Deaf, you're bringing up a wonderful point and an important point to try to get that early intervention in place when it comes to hearing. Now, I want to hear a little bit more about your wonderful Montreal Oral School for the Deaf. So can you tell me and our listeners about some of the invaluable services that are offered?
So we have different programs and services at MOSD. And the first one, of course, is the Early Intervention Program. And we work in partnership with the rehabilitation centers. Within our school, we have a 3-year-old program, a preschool 4, a preschool 5, and we also have a small number of children. We have classes from grade 1 to grade 6, and those are students with hearing loss who are not ready to tackle their curriculum in a regular classroom. And then we also have our itinerant services, and that's where most of our students are in their neighborhood schools, and they have an itinerant educational specialist that visits them weekly. There's direct intervention with the student, contact with the family, and we support the school team. And finally, we have our at-distance service for the students who are further away in a remote school board, or some of the school boards have a really big territory and it's, not realistic to do that weekly visit by car. And so we offer online weekly services for those students because they also require and benefit from that support service.
Just love the fact that, I didn't realize you actually have some classes and it makes even more sense. You are sending people out to the classes right across Montreal to help and during some of the challenges that some students might have.
We service all of the English school boards across the province of Quebec, and we also are in contact with some of the French school boards. But I also want to mention that we have 3 audiologists on staff, and audiology is the pillar of auditory verbal approach. So for us, the audiologists are phenomenal. They really guide our practice. They're of great support, and they're there to support that educational mandate that we have at MOSD. All
right. Very quickly, you've talked about technology, and obviously there's been some wonderful advancements in technology, particularly related to hearing loss. Can you tell us a little bit about some of them?
The evolution of technology has changed the world of deaf education. So at MOSD, it was created by parents in the 1950s, and we have pictures of children with big boxes and wires coming out of everywhere. And even when I first started in the late 80s, the hearing aids were really big. Cochlear implants were just starting. So when we look at size and just how hearing technology looks like, there's definitely been some changes. Hearing aids are much more discreet. They're colorful. So are sound processors. And in terms of the technology itself, hearing aids have gone from analog to digital. There are different options on a hearing aid, such as Bluetooth. You can have wireless streaming. And an audiologist can put different programs on a hearing aid depending on the listening environment that you're in. And hearing aids also have more frequency bands, so there's fine-tuning that can be to customize the experience. Cochlear implants have changed also a great deal. There are about 22 electrodes on average right now, when my first student who had one had 3 electrodes. Wow. Processors are also Bluetooth. There's an aqua kit so that people can go swimming in the ocean or in a pool. And really, cochlear implants have changed the lives of individuals with significant hearing loss, because hearing aids were just not able to provide enough amplification and information for them to really benefit from that technology. So today we're not going into assistive, but there's that too. So yes, great evolution.
Great to hear the evolution. And we've talked more children now, but also for seniors. And that generation is a little more challenging for hearing aids. There's a pride factor as well. And that's really improving. Things are getting smaller and more efficient. So love that technology is improving it. We're already out of time, but we want to get a shout out. How can our listeners find out a little bit more about the Montreal Oral School for the Deaf, Ross?
Well, they can go to our website, which is montrealoralschool.com. Just on there's also an email address. It's info@montrealoralschool.com. You can email us. Our phone number is 514-488-4946. You can ask for me. I take up a lot of calls from parents and different professionals, and we would be happy to answer any of your questions or give you any information that's necessary.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And you heard, you could reach out to France directly. That's France Tassé, Director of Pedagogy, Montreal Oral School for the Deaf. Now, up next, we're going to continue along along with this such an important topic. We're going to be talking to a young man about how a cochlear implant changed his life. And we're going to have Oscar, along with his mom, Dominique Godin, on the show. We just heard from France Tassé, the Director of Pedagogy at the Montreal Oral School for the Deaf. And now I'd like to bring in a special young man who had a cochlear implant done when he was younger. His name is Oscar Garrity, and he's in studio with me, along with his mother, Dominique Godin. Welcome to both of you to Life Unrehearsed.
Thank you.
Hey, Oscar, how you doing?
Good. I'm a bit nervous.
Yeah, that's totally normal, but we're going to have some fun here. You are a brave young man. We're going to hear about your story, and I'm so glad you came into the studio, both Dominic and Oscar. I really appreciate that, to talk about your wonderful story. And Dominic, I want to start with you. And so can you tell us when you thought something might have been wrong with Oscar's hearing?
Yeah, that's a great question. We had 3 other young children in the house, so it was a busy house, a loud house. And it took till Oscar was about 6 or 7 months old, and he was a little more autonomous. And what I mean by that is sitting on his own, for us to start realizing that perhaps he was missing some information, some crucial information. So we did some very rudimentary home tests. And then the following day we were at the pediatrician's, and she sent us to the children's, and 2 days later we came to understand that Oscar was born profoundly deaf.
My goodness. And so how old was Oscar when you found this out?
He was about 6 or 7 months old.
Amazing. And then I understand that after this, they determined that a cochlear implant would be the best course of action to correct Oscar's hearing loss. So maybe for our listeners, what is a cochlear implant?
Okay, well, I'll do my best at explaining it because the technology is really quite wild. Mm-hmm. Most people are familiar with a hearing aid, and a hearing aid amplifies sound. But in Oscar's case, his cochlea isn't working properly. So we have to bypass the cochlea in its entirety. So it's done with a device that comes in 2 parts. One part was implanted in Oscar's cochlea, and the other part he wears on his ear. It's a processor that has 2 microphones and captures the sound that we all hear. And then this is where it kind of starts to get a little bit tricky. It takes the sound and then it processes the sound into an electrical signal that then sends the signal to electrodes that are in his cochlea that have been implanted, and that then send a signal to the auditory nerve, which France explained earlier is the gateway to the brain. So then that is then sent to the brain as information.
It's just amazing. So the processor is basically sort of inputting these sounds. The brain is translating that now into words. So just very quickly, so when he had this implant done, how old was Oscar?
He was 11 months old.
11 months old.
Yeah.
My goodness. And how long does an operation like that take typically?
It was a painstaking 3-hour operation.
Yeah, I can't imagine as parents just throw your poor son at 11 months, just a little guy. Well, I'm in front of this little guy. He's not so little anymore. Oscar, I'm so happy you are here. You had this done at 11 months. So just for our listeners, how old are you now?
I'm 11 years old now.
From 11 months to 11 years. Well, great. And if I could ask you, how is your hearing now?
It is very clear now, but I can't hear at all without them.
So if you remove that processor, you can't hear at all?
No, just nothing.
Amazing. And so right now I'm talking to you. Your processor is working. Do you have to also read lips sometime?
Yeah, it does help when I'm saying like the back of the class and I can't really understand what the teacher's saying. It does help.
Yeah. And sometimes maybe you could use that as a good excuse. If you didn't hear the teacher, you could say that. Oh, man, he's smiling. Oscar, I want to, and by the way, I'm talking with Oscar Garrity, a young man, 11 years old, had a cochlear implant at 11 months old, and he's here with mom, Dominique Godin. By the way, it's a family affair. We got dad and Maggie, their daughter's also in studio with us. So, Oscar, I want to ask you, can you just give me an example of what your daily routine would be regarding these sound processes which are in the back of your ear? Is that it?
Yeah, so when I wake up, I take my batteries, I put them on my processor, I don't put them on right away because I kind of sometimes enjoy about 15 to 20 minutes of just silence to wake up, and then I put them on.
Nice. So there they are beside your bed. You have that 15, 20 minute of you time, no one on your case anymore. Yeah. It's almost, they say the benefits of meditation. You're doing your own meditation at 11 years old. So good. I hear mom snickering in the background there. So you know what? Good. So then you're getting that 15, 20 minute you time. You put the processor on. And then that's it? You start hearing normally, or how does that work? You just slipping it on the back of your ear?
Yeah, it usually takes like 3 seconds to put them on. I hear like 2 beeps, and then it goes. And then you're good. And then you're like new. Just amazing technology. I'd love to hear it. You're 11 years old. You're a good, fit young man. So are there certain limitations, Oscar, when you were growing up? Like, were you allowed to play sports, or you weren't allowed to play sports? I can play any sports with that are not involving water super freely, but if it's, say, swimming, I can put on the aqua kit, and then I can still hear, but it just blocks all the water. Amazing. So I understand you did a little water polo, I think, when you were younger. Is that correct? Yeah. And so you wore one of these aqua kits that kind of kept it dry. Yeah. Amazing. And I put like a bathing cap over them so they don't fall off. All right, got that. And then just day to day, or just regular life, and any other things that maybe you are limited to that you can't do? I can't shower because it'd be kind of useless to put the aqua kit on for showering. Mm-hmm. It only takes like 2 minutes. Mm-hmm.
But just to be clear, you can shower, and you do shower.
Yeah.
Mom and Dad make sure he does shower. Yes. I
can't take. Yeah, I have to take them off for roller coasters, or else they would just fall off. I don't sleep with them. So that they can charge. Okay, very good. And you're in grade what now? Grade 6. Grade 6. I think I see a shirt, Saint Remy. Is that where you go to school? Yeah. Shout out to Saint Remy in Beaconsfield, right? Yeah. Great school. My stepdaughter actually went there. Good for you. So, we have just a little bit of time. I want to throw it back over to Mom Dominique. By the way, we're talking with Dominique Godin, mom of Oscar Garrity, and we're talking about his cochlear implant and how it's changed his life, and just such a wonderful young man. Dominique, listeners, maybe there's some parents that are out there listening. What could you recommend to parents who think that their child might be experiencing some hearing loss?
Yeah, well, number one, I would tell them to trust their gut. If they think something is awry, go see your pediatrician. Insist on a hearing test. A lot of cases are not like Oscar's. Oscar's was really black on white. He was profoundly deaf, but a lot of folks that I've come to know over the years in the hearing loss community, there's partial hearing loss. So often people only figure it out when their child's 4 or 5, when they're going into school. So if you think anything is up, insist on a hearing test.
Yeah, great words of advice. And like you said, it took months and months for you to even realize, for you and Paul to say, oh, maybe something's up here, right? And the next thing you know, 9 months in, and you're scheduling a cochlear implant operation a month or two later. Yeah. Well, you know what? I really want to thank both of you for coming in. Oscar, it finishes just like that. All the build-up. So I want to thank you, Oscar. You are a wonderful young man. You did a great job. And Dominic, I want to thank you for coming in. Obviously, wonderful mom and parent. And I must also say a wonderful, true community leader, a city councillor with the city of Beaconsfield.
Oh, thank you.
And I want to thank all that you do. And glad we had a little side conversation at a charity event to tell me about your family situation. And Oscar, I understand you have not 1, not 2, 3 sisters. Is that true? Yeah. Oh, boy. Are you the youngest, or do you have one younger than you? No, I'm the youngest. Oh, boy. 3 older sisters. Well, you know what?
Where there are a lot of hearing examples for him. There are a lot of models at home for him to hear.
Oh, boy. Well, I want to thank both of you for coming to the studio. Oscar, much success. You're going to grade what next year?
Grade 7.
Grade 7, high school starting. Okay, wishing you the best of luck in your graduation year in grade 6 at St. Remy.
Thank you.
Dominic, thank you. And of course, shout out to Paul Garrity, dad who's in studio with their daughter Maggie. And Paul also happens to be the chairperson of the board of directors for the Montreal Oral School of the Deaf. I want to thank you, Paul, for also coming into studio. All right, next week on Life Unrehearsed, it's Mother's Day next Sunday, and we're going to be celebrating a few incredible mothers, including 2 moms raising children with a rare genetic disorder, and a neuroscientist explaining what happens when your kids reduce screen time from just 3 hours a day to 1 hour a day. You will not believe what she has to say. Thank you for tuning in to Life Unrehearsed, and as a reminder, for all your inquiries or assistance with life transitions, elder care planning, and the senior living industry, it'd be my pleasure to help. You can find out more by looking up Lianas Senior Transition Support. That's Lianas, Lianas Senior Transition Support. Many thanks to our technical producer, Dan. You can listen to Life Unrehearsed here on CJAD 800 every Sunday at 4 p.m.